Here we go. Recording is happening. Live on Facebook is about to happen as well. Oh wait, it's winning a title. Okay then. Tag you. All right. Let's see. Let's see if this works.
Okay, I see it.
Yeah, is it coming up? Awesome.
Yep, live on Facebook.
All right. And I just went live on Instagram as well. So we're live. Zoom
We're
in live.
and rolling.
Learning the new ways. Yeah, that's the cool thing about, going through what, this whole pandemic is. I feel like I'm definitely expanding. I've considered myself tech savvy, but I do feel like I'm expanding more of like the newer technology that's out there and available to us, like going live in multiple ways and whatnot.
That's awesome. How have you been?
Good, other than the weather.
Weather, yeah. I kind of sometimes feel like if this was like happening during nicer weather, it may be easier, right? It's been here in Virginia, it's been cold, and yesterday was sunny, but it was really windy, so it was kind of miserable to go walk in. And today it's cold and windy outside, so I feel a bit cooped up today.
Yeah, San Diego, it's been pretty much, hi Miriam. Miriam just joined us on Zoom as well. It's been raining all week. And I think at one point we tried to go outside for a walk with my mom, and I think it was like maybe 10-minute walk, and it started raining. So we were like, okay, go back home. She ended up going a bit longer. She doesn't mind walking in the rain. I've become spoiled with more of the nice weather here in San Diego, so I was just like, I'm just gonna go home. And what I noticed is, it's like, it's impacting my mood because I love the sun. Who doesn't love the sun? But for me, it's like just gives me such a better mood, which is one of the main reasons I moved out of Colorado, actually, is because of weather. So it's like, how can we maintain our mental health, even when we're cooped up, in this gloomy type of weather and not getting that extra sun and vitamin D and whatnot for our health,
Yeah, it's, I think on days like this, we also have a tendency to notice the situation that we're faced with a little bit more because we don't have as many escapes in a sense of, I can go for a walk. Oh, it's really nice outside. I can, go sit outside and have my coffee outside, or we can have dinner outside, or, whatever it is that we do to entertain ourselves. When the weather is not cooperating quite a bit with us, we have a tendency to notice the severity of the situation that we're in. And it is what it is. That's just kind of the nature of the human, right?
Yeah. Well, and one of the things that I actually was saying, again, I'm always about, okay, what's the, positive side of this? And I'm like, it kind of forces people to stay home.
Yes.
So it's like, I feel like there's like this whole, power, not the word power, but there's something outside of us, bigger than us, that is at play right now. And it's almost like, okay, well, what can we do to stay at home, force us to stay at home, and really, follow the rules, that's been put out there, right, to get through this time.
But I think I think it's so important to just be and recognize that this is it and it's okay. I mean, it can be so much better, of course, but it can also be so much worse, right? And given the circumstances that we're in, you know, recognizing that, you know, I'm okay, I'm just agitated, I'm short, I don't really feel my best, but that's okay, right? Things can be a lot easier and things can be a lot harder. So recognizing the state of this moment is really important. I've had sessions back to back all day today, and I'm just like wiped out right now, right? So speaking of the weather, I was hoping that, you know, and I haven't even been outside today, but I was hoping that it would be nice enough where I can go outside. So I just like poked my head out and I'm like, it's still kind of cold. But so I think what's the best thing to do is to say, all right, so I just have to now bundle up and go for a walk. Staying active is important, and we recognize that, and it's like the number one thing that keeps our mental health like steady, right? Staying active. And to me right now, staying active is a yoga class, or staying active is a, you know, a long, you know, 2.5, 3 mile walk where I can, you know, start to like push this energy that I'm feeling cooped up out of my system.
Yeah, the restlessness, because that's what I've been feeling. Is like, even this morning I woke up, I'm like, my legs feel like they need to get worked, you know. And I noticed that when the weather is like this, I don't, like, I'm not doing the biking that I had been doing, you know. So like one of the things I took on this week more was jump roping. So I keep jump roping, and I keep breaking my record. So I'm at 245 in a row. So I'm like, my goal is to get to 500 in a row. Not there yet. And then another thing I took on was I grabbed my volleyball and I found a little part of my, you know, house and a wall, and literally just started like hitting against the wall, you know, and I realized that it actually was helping with some of that. Because there's still things we can do inside to stay active too, you know. And yeah, and I was like, what wall can I use without breaking anything around it? And I mean, I'm not being crazy with it. I'm just, you know, I'm close up, but it still is movement, because I have to move and make sure I get the, you know, ball wherever, you know, it bounces back from. And I noticed it actually did require, you know, it required me to be more focused on it. And I felt my breath, you know, I started huffing and puffing, surprisingly. I didn't think that would happen. So I'm like, all right, let's see what else we can get creative around, you know, to take on in the house, you know, and just, yeah, maintain that mental health. Oh, you know what else I actually started this week I would love to share is I started doing the Sudoku puzzles.
Oh, yeah. My sister's big into that stuff.
Yeah, my mom is, and I always like watch her doing it, and you know, and I've never gone into it, and I actually picked it up this week, and I was like, oh, this actually does keep and it's a brain game, right? Which is important too.
It's actually a really good brain challenge. Yeah, it is. I've never been into puzzles and word games, and you know. My sisters both are, you know, they're both like big into that stuff, and traveling with my sister Samar, you know, I'd always be so annoyed because I'm like, do you want to talk to me? She's like, no, I'm working a, you know, word puzzle or a Sudoku or whatever. She was, you know, that's how she entertained herself, and I would just, they're bored out of my mind, like looking around, like, does anybody want to talk to me?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's actually, those are some fun things that we can engage the kids in as well, I think. Finding these different types of games that are mentally challenging. Physically, you don't have to do much, but they're mentally really challenging. You know, I don't know if we have any American listeners right now, but it just reminded me of my childhood and when we would play Es, Fami, Mi, Be. Remember that list game?
I feel like I remember a little bit.
Right. So it was like, and I don't know.
You have to memorize, or like you have to remember, like.
Well, no, it was like you come up with these categories, right? Like اسم، فامیل، میوه، اشیا، کشور، رنگ، حیوان, right? Like all these categories. And then you would say an alphabetical, you know, like you would say S, So you
Oh,
have to
yes,
come
I
up with
remember this.
yeah,
Oh, yeah,
right?
I do remember
Like
this.
like a color that starts with S, or a, you know,
Like
an
a
animal
name
that,
or animal. Yeah,
right.
yeah.
And we used to do that like in groups when we were kids. Like we would become two groups, and we would play, you know, against each other, and how fun it was. I mean, it was
And there's like
so
a
much.
point system, right? If you had like,
Yes, until they had
yeah,
a point system.
I
Right.
remember that.
And it was like whoever
I
wins, you
think
know,
I
the
played
loser gets
it
to buy ice cream, you
yeah,
know, and
yeah, just for fun. But I played that in American too, because I remember a song was one of them, and this is how funny I remember, because I remember every time it was an R, I would choose row, row, row your boat, because with each R you would get you would get a point, and I was like, yes, let's choose R. You know, the little things we
low
remember.
points. The next letter is R.
Yeah.
Yeah. So these are some of the ways that we can, you know, again, we have to remember, we got to keep that energy up, right? We have to do our best to keep that energy up. And it's okay to be down as well. But to keep focused that what's going to help us get through yet another day of this is to laugh, to engage, you know, to become creative, and, you know, and do all of that. Today, there is a song that the first time I heard it, it's an Iranian song. I was in California at a party this last time, and it's, I think the artist is Saucy, and Gentleman, like
Yeah,
that's the song.
Nancy Montan, yes, yes.
Yeah. And I'm, you know, and I don't really listen to new age Iranian music. I listen to the oldies. But that song is such a great vibration, and, you know, it just wants to make you move and dance. And after like client number 3, I was like, let me play that song and just like move around a little bit, because I feel like my energy is like so drained, and I need to like bring it back up again.
Mm-hmm.
And what's the easiest, fastest, and funnest way to do it is to play some great music and dance around, you know, while you're like trying to make a sandwich to eat. So, and clearly, you know, the weather isn't like that cooperative, although it is sunny outside here. It's just, you know, it looks warm. It's not that warm, is to do stuff that, you know, makes you happy.
Yeah.
And mentally keeps you active and vibrant, and brings you out of boredom, right?
Totally. And speaking of the whole dance thing, I finally I stopped resisting, and I installed TikTok. I'm sure you've heard of it at this point. TikTok is this whole new, I'm like, I kept seeing it come up, and I'm like, you know, okay, fine. Let me just like see what it is. And then I haven't really gotten into it too much, but what I'm noticing is so many more people are dancing right now. They're doing all these, like a similar song is like the oh na na na. I don't know if you've seen it, but oh my gosh, there's so many, and there's like this little dance to it, and then like doctors are posting it with their nurses, and it's like, it seems like dancing has now become the universal language to raise vibration. And I'm loving it, and with the music, of course, you know, because it's a universal language. I don't care what language the lyrics are. If the beat is there, people are
You're
gonna love
gonna
it.
move. Yeah, you're gonna move.
So,
Right, exactly. So it's just about bringing yourself out of that state of funk into another state of being, and really understanding that it is so incredibly important to do that. We have to, like, we don't have distractions anymore, right? I mean, we can't even necessarily go take a drive right now, right? We don't have those distractions. So it is your personal responsibility to take yourself out of a state of mind that you're in into another state of mind that suits you better, that serves you better, right?
mm-hmm.
And that's kind of where we are. Like, here we are, week 4, you know, finishing week 4, literally in quarantine. I can't even imagine like where I was last week when they're like 60 days. Now I'm like, oh, you got to be kidding me. But then, you know, to then bring myself out of that space to a space where, you know, I'm like listening to this crazy song and, you know, moving to it and dancing to it. And
Well, and then
So
the other part I wanted to bring up that you mentioned is the whole being part of it too. And I know we had a daily tip video about it, but I'd love to reiterate that, because what I've been seeing with some of my clients is they have like a sense of guilt because they're not being as productive, or, you know, they're not doing as much. And it's again coming back to, well, what does our body need? Because that's really what it comes down to. And if your body needs to just not do anything and literally lay out and, you know, watch even something mindless on Netflix, then so be it. But it's like the feeling of guilt and feeling bad and feeling like I'm not being productive is actually going to lower your frequency, right? So it's like looking at that as like, this is still being productive because I'm giving my body what it's asking for. You know, and to me, that's really huge too, to, you know, maintain that high vibration and from a different place. Right?
And you know, and that's so true. And one of your sentences is that we're human beings and not human doings, right? Quote unquote. And recognizing
I've gotten that from like the coach. I've gotten that from the training I've gotten to. So it's not necessarily like mine, but thank you for remembering it.
But first of all, one of the best things that's going to come out of this whole thing is that we're going to recognize how much we used to run senselessly for no good reason at all, and how busy we assumed our lives to be, and our lives really don't necessarily have to be that crazy busy, right? This is really going to teach us that, right? If it already hasn't, which I'm assuming it already has taught a lot of people, right? If it already hasn't, it's going to teach you that running around and acting like you're so crazy busy is just not really a state of being, right? It's distractions of, look how busy I am, right? I like this mentality that we've been taught. The busier that you are, the more productive that you are. The busier that you are, if you really act like you have no time, that means you're really successful, and, you know, and that's just not true. That is not true. It disconnects us. It, you know, it takes us out of, you know, that the meridian system being in balance, right? Because it's just being busy with distractions. So one of the best things we can do right now is to really learn how to be, to really learn how to be in that particular moment in time, because we can, right? Like, end of the day, you know, period, we can just be. It is what it is. So, so this, I think, one of the best things that's going to come out of where we are in our lives with this, like, quarantining, being at home, stay at home order, whatever you want to call it, you know, is that. And the fact that it has made us all slow down.
Totally. And it's like, and what I, you know, just to add to that, because I love that. And it's like, you know, we already know it takes at least 40 days to create a habit, right?
So we're slowly coming up on that.
I know. And so it's like, again, it's like there is something bigger than us that's at play, that's actually giving every single person the opportunity to now have and create new habits. You know, I know a lot of people were always like, I wish one day I could have all this blah, blah, blah with my family, time with my family, this with, you know, however that looks like. And right now it's like the perfect opportunity, because a lot of people are working from home, to really start to see, okay, well, how can I create that balance? How can I actually have it go all my way without having to cut things out? Because one of the things that I see is sometimes people have this all or nothing, right? Like, I have to do all, you know, be all work and then nothing, everything, you know, else. And then, or I can have to be all family. And it's like, no, well, how can you have it all your way and still make it work, you know, and have it be like a win-win-win situation? And I really see that this is giving the opportunity of creating these habits.
Yes, balance, absolutely. It's so funny that some of the, you know, as I go through social media, people have written things like, oh, we finally, you know, if they live in a really polluted city, and they have for many years, like, this has cleared the air because people are not driving around, right? It's really kind of contributing in such a positive way to the environment as well. We don't have as much waste. We're not, we're not polluting our environment as much. And now we're going to see what 30 days, 60 days, 90 days of this is going to do, right? And I think it's kind of, in a sense, doing that same thing for us in our personal lives, right?
Oh my gosh.
So now I'm like 60 days, like I'm sorry, I just can't, when I'm upset with you, I can't run to the mall and buy 2 pairs of shoes, or, I can't go get my nails done, and I can't like just say, oh, I'm just going to go meet with my friend, because I can't, right?
Yep.
I mean, there are things that we just cannot do, right? Those distractions, running away from our problems, from our emotions, from whatever, right? Distractions. That also, those distractions also make us happy as well. I'm not saying that, it's all
sure.
bad.
Yeah.
But what, like, after 90 days of this, like, what are we going to experience, right? How are we going to recognize what life is? And like, one of the things that I'm recognizing is that it's a lot more exhausting for me to do, online sessions. Like, in person, they're a little bit easier. Online, I'm just kind of like wiped out. And I think it's because of the screen, right? The screen makes me tired. So 8 hours, 6 hours, 4 hours of like staring into it makes me tired. All right. So, this is a blessing that I can do this, in a regular environment and not an online environment, right? A physical environment. So I'm noticing that. I'm starting to recognize it, right?
And awareness is everything, because then you're like, okay.
It's 50%. Awareness is 50%. The other 50s, you got to work on it, right?
Yeah. And you always say 50, I say 80, but it's 50+%. Let's just put it that way. Yeah, it's never going to go back to the way it was. That's one thing that I'm very clear of. It will never go back to how it was. And that doesn't mean that's a bad thing. I truly believe it's actually going to be better than it ever was. Because at this point, we're going to have so many more people being grateful for their lives, for health, and for so many things they took for granted. So of course, there's going to be a lot more people having the higher vibrations. That's just how I see it, That's like my personal belief around it. And just to speak to that too, and I was like, I love Bruce. Do you know who Dr. Bruce Lipton is? I don't know if we've talked about.
Dr. who?
Bruce Lipton. He's a cellular biologist. I love the guy. I follow a lot of his videos closely. I'll have to send you some links, but or YouTube. Like I was watching a couple different videos of his earlier today, and one of them that he talked about was actually, because he talks about the science side of energy and subconscious healing and all these things, which is great because I, as much as I love the energy and spirit side of things, I'm also very logical and I like to see scientific proof, right? And so he was talking about actually how, this is why I actually wanted to bring this up, but he was talking about how fear and lower vibrations and whatnot actually are the worst things for our immune system right now. It actually, it actually really can, cause us to even be more susceptible to diseases, whether it's coronavirus or anything else, right? So it's actually like keeping that vibration high and raising it consistently is really crucial during this time. It's not just to be happy. It's literally to boost your immune system.
No, it's not just that. You're absolutely right. And I've heard this now through several different, channels that they've come through that, first of all, we know that what fear does to us, right? What it does to our cells. And then we also know what stress does to us, right? Yeah. So, and they kind of go hand in hand.
Yeah, it's like a byproduct of fear. Stress is a byproduct of fear.
Exactly. So, this is so true. And I don't know, one of the things that I was trying to think about the other night, I have not necessarily faced any fears with this, right? Because I'm not out and about. I'm not, and I was trying to think, like, is it odd that I'm not experiencing fear? Is it odd? Like, this is like really scary stuff. Is it odd that I'm actually not physically experiencing fear, right? And on the flip side, I'm also not that concerned, which is weird. It felt like it was weird. So then I recognized that it's almost as if my body, because of all of the messages that I'm receiving, right, and I'm rejecting, like, I'm just not going to buy into your projection of fear. I'm sorry, you know, whoever the newscaster is at that moment, or whatever the TV channel is telling me. But my body, it seems like my body is starting to say, maybe perhaps you should fear this, right? Maybe you should be a little bit more concerned than you are. And I just recognized it.
Yeah.
That's it. You know, I didn't really buy into it, and I didn't reject it. I just recognized it. And I was like, well, I'm just not that fearful, right?
Well, my guess is you're also not watching a lot of the media.
No.
Yeah, so that is a huge factor, because I noticed, similar to you, I actually don't have that fear or concern, because I also believe our bodies are capable of fighting off anything and healing, you know? So for me, like, that's my belief system. And so when I do actually sit down and listen to, you know, if Ashkan is watching the news or, you know, whatnot, if I notice why people would get fearful based on just listening to what some of the, you know, news and media is saying, and because they make it seem like, oh my God, you know, you got to cage yourself, otherwise you're going to die. Like, that's really whether or not they're saying it that way, that's the energy of it. That's how it's coming across. And so a lot of people may take that on, you know, and that's why for me, I'm like, you know, go seek out what the facts are. Don't go and just watch any news or media, because that is going to actually bring your, you know, it really does. It brings negative energy to you. I know it does for me. That's
Right.
just like one of the biggest reasons why I don't really watch the news unless I go and look for it myself.
Well, initially when this all went down, my reaction clearly was not as calm as I am today. I mean, it was nervous, anxiety, oh my God, what's going to happen? You know, like, my life is so calm and settled, and, you know, like, what is going? So I had to face all of that as well, right? And then once I got past that, and it took a little bit of time for me to get past that, once I got past it, I recognized there are some things that I just clearly need to do to stay mentally healthy. And then there are some things that I clearly need not to do to stay mentally healthy. Now, I recognize that it's absolutely important to watch the news, because we have to be able to get information and know what's happening. That's
knowing where, and knowing where to get the news from.
Right, exactly.
That, I think, is the key.
It's very important. So, but I don't need to have it all day long. I don't need the buzzing sound of it all day long. Yeah, I can tune into, you know, 2 different channels to, like, get what I want, or read some stuff on the news. Or sometimes I even refuse to listen. I just ask. I'm like, anything worth me knowing today on the news?
Yep, you know? That's pretty much what I've done. And if I want to go and find out more, I will go and read about it. So somebody on Facebook is Zach Richardson. I don't know if somebody you know. He says, my state of abundance has started to rapidly subside with my bank account. So I know that's something that I have heard, you know, where people are starting to have more of like a scarcity mentality, because they're like, oh my gosh, like finances, you know, and whatnot are starting to diminish and, you know, whatnot. So I can totally get, you know, that a state of abundance can, you know, start to be, you know, what is it called? I can't think of it. I'm like brain freeze all of a sudden. Anyhow, it's going to start to get questioned in some sense, right? I mean, have you heard that from any of your patients?
Oh, of course.
Right?
Oh my gosh, absolutely. And I think we're faced with it too. Listen, totally. We all live these lives that we think it's like the money is almost like endless. It's just going to keep coming, you know? And the reality is not that, right? So, and this is one of the times in in the history of like my life, I get to experience the fact that, you know, I'm going to experience a drop in my business. I'm going to experience, right? This, one of the things that I think is extremely helpful is to recognize that this is not just happening to me. This is happening to everybody right now.
Yeah.
Right.
I'd love to add something to that though, because I do believe money is energy. I do believe that, you know, right. And I do get, and I get it. Like, we're going to be going maybe in the downs and, you know, whatnot, but money maybe not coming currently in some ways, but we don't know, like, you know, maybe afterwards it's going to go back up and way more than it ever was. Or one of the other things I'd love to really like focus on is, okay, well, I may not be making maybe like as much as I had been right before this, but I'm also not making payments as much. Like, I'm not, you know, my gym memberships are just, I'm not paying them right now. I'm not going, you know, getting more gas on a regular basis. There's so many other things that I'm actually saving money around, right? So it's really, and then there's like abundance is not just money as well. So for me, it's like, okay, well, what do we have in them? So Zach, when you talk about, you know, your state of mind around abundance, well, what else do you have an abundance of other than money? Because that's what you can focus on to still maintain, you know, that state of, you know, your abundant state of mind. And it looks like you wrote something up. Fear blocks the ability to manifest. Absolutely.
Right.
So that's what
We absolutely, well, you know, and it's interesting because, again, it's how you define your life, right? If your definition and the way you define your life has a lot to do with the abundance of finances, right? Of course, then this is going to be extremely weird or scary or different for you, right? And perhaps, you know, switching focus now to recognizing the abundance of other things that we have, right?
like the abundance of time.
Abundance of time. So all, and then creating some sort of a mental balance with that is important. Let's not forget, it is also important to really becoming proactive about, okay, so how am I going to pay what payments am I not currently paying, you know? Where is money not going and staying, and where do I need to channel my money? Like how? So it's almost like you have to refigure how you were paying bills, how you were living life, you know? One of the first things that I did initially when this happened, I went and stopped all of my automatic payments. I stopped all of my automatic payments, right? It was like, I need to figure out like how I'm going to pay what, right? And then we have a whole bunch of like apps and things of that nature. Not that I'm, you know, I'm not saying this is what everybody should do, but I became extremely focused, and I like cut out so much of, you know, $4 here, $5 there that I just brainlessly paid and used. And these were things that were unnecessary, right? So, but then to shift focus to abundance was also important, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Interestingly enough, in the past 4 weeks, I've picked up 6 new patients, right?
Yeah,
and
that's awesome.
That's like on a regular week prior to all of this, that would have been a good week.
Right.
So,
yeah.
So to shift focus to abundance, then you notice that things come, and they may not come the way you know you remember them, but it does, and life is a flow, and it's energy, and so it'll come in a wave, and then it'll go out, you know, a different way, and that's just how it is. And acceptance of it is extremely important
of what is actually happening. Because I mean, and back to like, you know, abundance is a, you know, love from a state of love, a frequency of love, because we're all limitless, we're all infinite beings, right? We're like the spirit. They always say we're spiritual beings living a human or having a human experience. And scarcity is actually a lack of trust and love frequency, and it really is that coming from that state of fear. So when you are in that state of fear, then you're going to start feeling more of that scarcity, rather than really like seeing that, hey, what if we are all limitless? And like you said, you know, now new ways are coming to, you know, to you. Like who would have known, right? That now you're going to have, you know, maybe you don't do a screen time in the future, but maybe you do. Maybe now this is like you have an additional way after all this is done to have even more clients. But you do both in person and online, where this wouldn't have even been possible before.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Oh,
So
and then Roshan on Instagram says, this is a massive time for us to restructure our paradigm to taking what we need instead of the consumerism patterns we've been obsessed with.
yes, all of our sweet distractions.
Yeah.
I remember when I went to Iran, one of the things that happened, because shopping is a little bit different there than it is here. I just I stopped shopping. Like I stopped buying clothes or shoes or, I stopped. And because I was there for a period of time, when I came back, this behavior of like mindlessly going to the mall and purchasing was not a thing in my life anymore. And even now it's really not. Like I just dive back into it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes like going to the mall feels extremely overwhelming to me because of all the people and the noise. I mean, it's just too stimulating, it seems, at times. And other times I go and I have a great time, of course, right?
Yeah, it's all about where you are vibration-wise.
Yeah, exactly. So to the point that was that you just mentioned, this is our number one source of distraction: purchasing. The power of purchasing and shopping. Yeah. It's the number one. You don't feel good, go buy something. You feel good, go buy something. You are bored, go buy something. I mean, it doesn't matter what state of mind you're in, right? You can always purchase something. And I think
it's an easy distraction for sure. Easy, like
very, very
mindless.
Easy.
That makes you and being an addictionologist as you are, I'm sure it's also a part of your practice. It's like kind of an addiction, really, to get that it's the temporary satisfaction, temporary fulfillment, right?
And then you go back and you still have to deal with the emotion, you know. Yeah. It's really interesting, but you're absolutely right. It's going to change a lot of that because we're going to learn new ways of dealing with the state that we're in rather than the distraction of let me go shopping.
Yeah, and it really, to me, is just there's going to be so much more awareness in all of us. It really, I believe, is going to raise our awareness in all kinds of ways to really start knowing, like, oh, when I'm going to do something, I'm not doing it on autopilot. I'm not doing this unconsciously just because I've been doing this on a routine basis for years and years beforehand. Because now it's like all this whole new way of, I'm getting a couple messages here. So let's see. Why are some of us eating to excess? And that's another. That's exactly what we're talking about. It's boredom. It's comforting. Food is one of the most comforting, it really is one of the most, if not the most comforting thing to go to. And being at home, I mean, come on, the fridge is right there. You're like, I'm bored. Let me open the fridge. I even catch myself doing it. And I'm like, wait, am I actually hungry? So then it becomes like, well, does my body actually want food right now? Or is it just me being bored? And I'm just trying to eat to get through this, another half an hour of my day.
A couple of nights ago, I mean, I couldn't stop eating. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to go through all the food in my house and I'm not going to have anything. I'm going to have to go shopping again because I think what had happened is that I hit another boredom wall, which is totally normal, and we do. And when we're home, see, let's talk about this maybe for a second. What does our home represent? When you say I'm going to go home, what does that represent? What does that mean?
Yeah, for me, it's like my sanctuary, right? But
sit, relax, eat, make things, right? Our home represents this space where we do certain things to soothe ourselves, right? So this overeating that we're experiencing right now is that it's really that of not necessarily even boredom. Boredom has a lot to do with it, but it's what my home represents, and I'm at home, so I should be eating, right? So, I mean, it's funny because I have my coffee and then I'm like, what are we going to eat for breakfast? And then as soon as I'm done with that, I'm like, what are we going to have for lunch? And then before I'm done with that, I'm like, you want a snack? And it's because that's what our home represents. It represents sharing and eating and relaxing and sitting. And that's why so often we are talking about hydrate, drink a lot of water, right?
Yeah.
Be active, like get off of the chair, get off of the couch, move around, dance, go for a walk, do whatever it takes to be, if you have stairs in your house, do a stairs challenge, do, whatever it takes to be active, because the home represents relaxation and sanctuary and eating and all of that.
Yeah. Yeah, and for me, because I have been, at this point working from home for a few years now, I remember when I was going through the transition of, because same thing, I was out of my house 40, 50 hours, of the week, and came home and would eat, wake up, eat, leave, come back home, eat, sleep, right? So I remember that transition period, whereas now I do what's called intuitive eating. And it's more so just listening to your body before you eat, before you put anything in your mouth. And again, it comes more from the awareness. Have you heard of intuitive eating? I'm sure, yeah.
I've never practiced it, though, I have to be honest.
Yeah, and it does take it, because it requires consciousness. It requires being aware. And so Zach actually said, maybe this would be a great lesson in discipline for me, the eating and overworking. And yeah, this is a great time, to really take that on and really start listening to your body and seeing, okay, if I'm going to be eating right now, really asking yourself the question of like, well, am I eating out of boredom, or am I actually hungry? Or maybe I'm thirsty, because a lot of times, like you were saying, the hydration piece, our body tends to think we're hungry, but when actually we're thirsty, right? So it's like constantly being aware of, why am I eating right now? And is this actually serving and benefiting my body, or is it just my tongue that wants some, something flavorful because I'm bored?
Yeah, I remember Dr. saying the other day, I was on, I don't remember, one of these channels with her, and she's like, chew gum. You just feel like you need to, chew. So just chew gum. And I thought, I never chew gum. Like, I'm one of the people who always rejects gum. Like, would you like some gum? No, thank you. I don't chew gum. But it also, it's that sensation of feeling like you need to be busy doing something. That's also another whole.
Yeah, instead of just being, and it's okay. So speaking of all of this too, what I would love to add to like all the things to do in the home is also the meditation and breath work, because that in itself, is so, it really just has you become more focused on the present moment, rather than, like you were saying, like, I just had my coffee, what are we going to have for breakfast? And then, already planning on when and what we're going to eat next, rather than asking our body right in the moment of, okay, what is it that my body actually wants right now? And then, like, in between it, doing the breath work actually allows you to be more present with that, be more present with your body and sensing, like you were talking about scanning your body when you do the breath work.
Absolutely. Another thing that I haven't quite done yet, but I may start to get into, is taking an afternoon nap.
Oh my gosh, I had done a lot of research. Oh, there you are. Okay.
Sorry.
I had, at one point when I did my event a few months ago, I had done all this research on actually the benefits of power napping, and it actually does so many great things to our body. Let's see. Oh, there you are. Okay. I lost you for a second. Yeah. And I remember one of the biggest ones being the, giving mental clarity. And it was like a huge part of it. And with memory, it helps with memory as well.
It helps a lot. Yeah, power napping. So I'm thinking about, incorporating that back into my life, not back into it, because it's really never been since I was a child, but why not? We can do that now. I can actually take 2 hours in the middle of the day and say, I'm just going to lay down and take a nap. Yeah. And maybe not for 2 hours, but
it's interesting because we all obviously know Iran, has this whole, napping time. And I've also heard that a lot of other countries have taken that on too, like I want to say Spain, and I feel like there was another, I know there's a couple other ones, but they also have this nap time. And I know even companies have taken that on. I think Google actually, I read Google had taken that on to allow, to give some, you know, time for people to take a nap if they so need to do so, you know?
Oh yeah, um, there was a period of time in my life that I was nutritionally really deprived, and I remember that during my lunch hour, I would go in my car, and remember the Colorado sun was so warm. Like you could sit in your car and it would feel so nice and warm. And then you would step outside and it would be freezing cold, right? The sun was an amazing gift that we had. And I would go in my car and I would just push my seat back and I would take a nap, and it would rejuvenate me, right? And I could pull through the rest of the day. Until I found out that part of the reason that I felt like I was going to pass out is because I had no nutrition, because my diet was so terrible for a period of time, and until I fixed that. But that power nap is just something very, very amazing. And I know during the weekends I do it. I mean, like, I don't care. I sleep. It is what it is. That's what I do.
Yeah.
And I love my sleep.
Yeah. Oh, me too. I'm definitely a person that like, I need at least 7 to 8 to 9 hours of sleep at night. But I mean, same as you, when I used to work at, you know, the corporate world, and it was always so cold. I was always like one of the only females in my team, and if not the only one. And the guys always liked it cold in my surroundings, and I would always be freezing. So I would do something similar. I would just go in my car and just absorb that sun, and so many times would actually take, you know, 10, 15-minute nap, or 20 minutes at times during lunch. You know, I would totally do the same thing. So a couple of comments here. Yeah, Sarah Shirazi is on. What's up, Sarah? She's saying, let's bring nap time back. Yeah, totally. And then Zach actually commented that, and I'm guessing he's talking about the food and how that stops his fear momentum, which I get that, you know, it's like a way to, again, but that's a distraction, right?
I'm sorry, it stops what?
His fear. Like, so when he goes to the, you know, when he does the eating, he's, you know, his way of distracting from fear is eat, but again, it's a distraction. So it's like, what else can you distract yourself with and take on something to raise your vibration? Like the dancing we were talking about is a huge one, or moving or whatnot.
Well, one of the things that just came to my mind is that what if that is going to be your distraction, why not then look up a recipe, create a recipe, do something, you know, more productive than just like this mindless, senseless sort of, I'm just going to consume because I'm bored, or I'm, you know, I'm in a state of fear or anxiety, right? So if that's what it is, and if that's what you recognize that it is, then do something positive with it, right?
Yeah, totally. And I know Roshan had mentioned something about, I don't remember what part of the conversation we were talking about, but she was talking about oil pulling, which I know is very beneficial in, you know, detoxing and boosting your immune system. Have you heard of oil pulling? Oil pulling? From what I remember, and correct me if I'm wrong, Roshan, but I remember for a while, it was like this, you know how they do these trends, or it's like, oh, put, you know, coconut oil in your, you know, mouth and, you know, swish it around for like 30 minutes or something, and it ends up pulling out toxins and
I don't know.
So I've tried all kinds of different things, but I remember doing that a few years ago. I know, it's whenever something's there, like I'm like, all right, I'll give it a try. Let's see. Anyhow, but yeah, I do remember doing that a while back. I haven't done it in years, but I'm guessing that's what she was referring to. Yeah.
I love food so much, and I love eating and sharing food and doing all of that, that I've not once ever in my life have ever, you know, been successful at a diet. Diets like I talk about dieting when I gain weight, because, you know, my focus becomes, you know, like, let's not deprive ourselves.
Oh, I guess Zach was saying he was talking about the nap or sleep stops his fear. I think that's what he's saying. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You know, attending
Yeah,
to
actually, repairs, you know, it rejuvenates you. So
Mm-hmm.
that to
Mm-hmm.
me, but not making yourself wrong about it. That's the big part, is don't make yourself wrong. If that's what you're going to choose to do to get through it, this is not an easy time. We've
No.
never in our lives experienced something like this before. Not one single human being. It's completely new. So
Absolutely.
therefore, we're going to all have funky energy in the collective, period. And that's
It is.
what's going to, you know, and so if you feel like, hey, I need to just sleep through this, so be it. I know so many people that are sleeping, including myself, having a lot more of those being days, a lot more of those, you know, days where we're just being more in touch with our feminine energy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And not judging the state of where
Exactly.
we are at that particular moment, and recognizing this is where I am at this moment in time. And I do have to say that I feel like we're a lot more productive than we used to be, right? And it's almost maybe because we feel that um, I'm not being productive, so we're doing more things. That's what I'm hearing, you know, from people. I don't know.
Well,
So
I
maybe
think
it's
it's
like a
just,
perception that I'm
yeah.
not being productive. Maybe we are being
Oh,
productive,
yeah.
but we're not supposed to be productive, you know, 14 hours a day. We're not
Yeah.
16 hours a day. If you have, you know, a couple of good, strong productivity hours, then that, you know, that's good enough.
And then again, it's the definition of what's productive. Because again, when you sit here and tell yourself sitting around and, you know, watching a show or two or a series or whatnot is lazy and waste of time, well then, you know, if that's what your body's asking for, that is productive for your body. It's really the definition of what, you know, what have we defined as productive. And it seems like just with, you know, the society and whatnot, like you were saying earlier, busy and means successful. Well, productive means like producing something. Whereas to me, it's like, no, well, you know, sometimes we just need to be and really bring that energy back and allow our body just to, you know, be with whatever energy there is.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. You know, I keep posting pictures of my dog. Like, he does not care about any of this going on. Like, he's just like knocked out. All right. Like,
They're
just
probably
like,
the happiest right now.
oh my gosh. You know, I mean, initially I was like, he's going to think he's going to have to suit up and go to work with me. Now I feel like he's not going to be able to stand in his kennel for 2 hours because, you know, he's out. He hasn't spent any time in there. So, I mean, this is so out of our element, in a sense, what we're experiencing, that on one hand it's hilarious, it's funny, it's weird in that sense. On the other hand, it's very scary, right?
Mhm.
And on, you know, you look at it from another lens, there are so many blessings that are coming from this, that, you know, we are connecting with people that we haven't connected with in years and years. So, and recognizing all of these different states of being, right, and dealing with them as they come is really helpful. It's really, really helpful. And it's, we're all going to come out of this and be different people.
Oh my God.
Hopefully for the better.
Oh, absolutely. So Zach commented something else. He said, how about data overload? I am getting overloaded by work, Facebook, texting, talking with people. It's a difficult, stressful. So I love that you asked that, Zach. I'll share my take on it, and then you can too, Samar. So when I hear that, I hear it as you feel obligated. Now, work, I get it. You know, there's things that you got to take care of with work. But when it comes to Facebook, texting, talking with people, and all that, well, to me, it sounds like it's more of an obligation, or it's still part of your autopilot possibly to check it, rather than saying, you know what, I'm only going to check my, you know, phone and talk to people, you know, between, let's just say, I don't know, 6 to 8 p.m. at night, or, you know, something like that. And that way you're doing it out of your desire to, rather than feeling like I have to keep up with all these text messages and Facebook notifications. That's something I've taken on in my life. You know, sometimes I just choose to leave my phone and not look at it for several hours. And then sometimes I'm on it for several hours. So it just depends, again, taking it moment by moment rather than feeling like I have to send, I have to respond to people right then and there, because that becomes an obligation rather than an inspired action. And I'm all about inspired action.
Mm-hmm.
That's my take on it.
Yeah. I'm so glad that he brought this up, because I think that because we're home and we want to be connected, we're automatically engaging in a lot more screen time, right?
Yeah.
And like and I mentioned earlier that I'm starting to notice that maybe it's the screen that's making me exhausted, right? This is also another thing that we got to recognize, and we have to set boundaries and limits around it for ourselves, right? There are times that you have to turn the TV off, put the phone away, and not even read, right? Maybe just allow your mind to take it all in and relax, and right, and do some things that are away from receiving information in that sense, like information overload or screen time overload. So I'm really happy that you brought that up, because I think on one hand we're advocating stay socially connected, do a lot of screen time, do this. We're advocating a lot of that, right? Mm-hmm. But on the flip side, we also have to remember not to create like another addiction for ourselves, while we're trying to stay connected, while we're trying to, so I'm very happy, and thank you for that comment and question. Yeah. I think it is important for us to like turn it all off, give ourselves an hour of a break, half an hour of a break, couple of times a day, and just, and just let it all go and allow our minds and our eyes and our bodies to just relax from it.
Yeah. And he also mentioned, it looks like, he says, I am very chatty and my work is on LinkedIn, Facebook, thinking, it looks like, which I get that. Majority of my, that's pretty much my marketing is all social media, and so same though, there are times where I'm like, okay, I'm inspired to go on, and I will go on when I'm inspired to. I think that's the biggest part. I don't ever, like if there are times where I'm like, you know what, this feels overwhelming, I don't go near my phone. I literally will put my phone away and I'll go, like Samar was saying, go cook a recipe, go find some healthy recipe to cook, or go do something active to get my mind off of it. And when I am, because if you are responding from a place of like forced, from that forced frequency or feeling obligated to, you're never going to be at your best self anyway. And that energy of it will be there. So to me, it's like, well, that's one of the things my husband always says. He's like, if he's not in the best of, mood, he's a commercial sales insurance. And he says straight up, if I don't feel the energy, if I don't feel good, I don't make those sales calls, because I know that energy is going to be there and it's not going to go the way that I would want it to go to from a high vibing place.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm. Recognizing that energy, learning that energy and working with it and becoming comfortable with it is really important. And once you find it and you recognize it and you become familiar with it, then your world starts to change a little bit.
Absolutely. Well, I recognize that it's 3 minutes till 1 here in San Diego. Oh yeah, it looks like Zach says he's in insurance as well. So yeah, that's what my husband does. And yeah, but again, it's more about, the energy of it. It's always like, where are you coming from? What energy are you coming from? And if your energy is overwhelmed and stressed, just know that no matter what, the person on the other side, whether or not you have this big smile on your face, they will still sense it.
Right. So. Right. I agree with you. Well, thank you to everybody who joined us. Another one of these lives.
I just want to check in with Nusha and Miriam and see the ones that are on our Zoom, to see if there's anything that they wanted to share or anything before we jump off. Looks like no. All right. Well, thank you all for joining. Oh, wait, Miriam's coming on.
Oh, no, I was going to say thank you.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you for joining. Awesome. Well, this was exciting. I'm glad we got, more questions and whatnot. And it actually really, made it go even faster and longer than usual. So it's definitely fun. So
have a wonderful weekend, everybody. Stay safe. We'll see you next week.
Yes. Bye.
Bye. Bye.